Hey everybody, welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. I'm continuing my series on which is better, a cover song or the original. Next up is Bad Company. Of course, Bad Company did a version, which is Paul Rodgers. And then Five Finger Death Punch did a version, which is Ivan Moody. So we're gonna get into this in a minute, but if you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe to my channel. That would be really cool. I have a singing course. I'm a vocal coach, and the course is called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. You can find it right here at KenTamplinVocalAcademy.com, where I also have a free singing forum over there with over 25,000 singers. Now, interestingly, I was originally approached by Five Finger Death Punch's management company if I would go through this with Ivan early on, just before they did this song. I happened to be moving to Hawaii at the time and wasn't able to do it because they needed me to be in LA and I was moving. But anyway, I thought there's a little interesting side note. So I have a lot of familiarity with classic rock. I think it's probably why they chose me. And I have a really tough time with this one because I have such man love and artist love for Paul Rodgers that I don't really know if I'm going to be able to separate out which I think is better and why. I'll do my best, and I really am going to rely on you guys in the comment sections to help me out why you think certain things are better, because again, I just have such a love and appreciation for Paul Rodgers as a singer. Now, I gotta say again, this is important. There's criteria as we go through this. The person that wrote the song, if there was like a 100-point scale, they should get 50 points, right? Right away, because they wrote the song and they popularized the song. But oftentimes, for example, in cases of like Bob Dylan might write a song and his version might be basically kind of bloody awful, and someone else comes along and redoes it. And here's a great example, because I think he has more songs that have been covered than any other artist alive. True story. Like Google, you know, what artists have covered Bob Dylan's music, and you're just gonna pages of like the biggest artists that have ever lived. But anyway, so it's like his original versions weren't that great, but he wrote the song, so we should give him like mega kudos for that, and then whatever happens we'll talk about. But so we're gonna dive in first to the original. We'll juxtapose the two back and forth, which just means compare the two. Now we have a thunderstorm going on here, so here going off, there's no gunfire or nothing, even though I know the Five Finger Death Punch's thing is based in Iraq, and you know, it's an Iraq military thing. And I had to use the Sons of Anarchy version because I couldn't find a version I was allowed to use for, you know, from a publishing standpoint. So I'm doing the best to get the best versions I can, so everyone's even playing field as we're listening to this stuff. So let's dive right in. Here we go. Bad Company. Paul Rodgers is a singer. Here we go.
Company, always on the run. Destiny is a rising sun. Oh, I was born, six gun in my hand. Behind a gun, I make my final stand. It's why they call me.
Okay, now we're gonna take this up to there. So, things I love about Paul's version is I guess it's kind of, you know, the backdrop and story of my life. So that's not really fair, because I have, again, genetically such a predisposition of love for it, because I grew up on this, right? But company's got the kind of real cool for always on the run's got the real cool and sweet tone and love, right? So there's the idea, make my final stand. And when he gets into his distorted thing, he's got his Paul Rodgers hat on, so to speak. But let's listen to Ivan. Here we go.
A company,
much lower in key.
always on the run.
So it's faster. A company, always on the run. So he's singing it much straighter, but again, that's pretty typical of more modern rock to not, you know, have so much blues and swag and phrase it, you know, kind of on the beat rather than you know, moving it around.
Destiny, oh, it's the rising sun. I was born, a shotgun in my hands. finding the good. I'll make my final stand. Yeah.
Now, immediately, two things develop. The first thing is the intensity of the way it builds, okay? Now, it says in a lower key, as I said. They kept the original intention or integrity of the Bad Company version. They sped it up a little bit, so they brought in a little more intensity that way, but you can already tell that they're kind of trying to get quickly to the buildup of the chorus. Whereas in the Paul Rodgers version, in the Bad Company version, I don't feel that way. I feel sort of like it's kind of laid back and he's telling a story, and I think of the gunslinger. I don't think of U.S. military in Iraq, because I know that's kind of the setting for the Five Finger Death Punch tune. And I think that's important because one of them is Wild Wild West. Maybe they're implying that, I don't know. And then the other is kind of aggression. Like, you know what I mean? That's like a really aggressive, really dominant, powerful, everything's macho. I don't get the feeling like the Bad Company turn is like, man, I'm bad. There goes my lights. Like I said, we're in a big thunderstorm right now. So I'm actually up in Flagstaff, Arizona, and it's about 7,000 feet. And in the summertime, there's like these crazy monsoons that come through here. I never knew that, but they're here. Anyway, so if you hear, again, it's not Brent blowing somebody up. So there's that. Now I want to go back to the Bad Company version. Let's hear the chorus. Here we go. Okay, so there's like a sassy swag to the Bad Company version, and it's more saucy, swaggy. You know, it's got attitude in a swag kind of way. You know, it's not like right in your face. So let's check out Five Finger Death Punch. Here we go.
And that's why they call me Bad Company. I can't deny.
It's pretty cool.
Bad Company till the day I die. Until the day I die. Until the day I die.
Cool. Now, don't you guys get mad at me for making comparisons. So people get so upset when I compare something to something else. I'm not saying it exactly like this, but this kind of reminds me of like a Shinedown kind of version in a way. Maybe you guys think it does too, but I could sort of hear Brent Smith doing this, you know what I mean, in his own way. But I love the guitar riffs. I think they did a really cool, version where they instrumentally, they were very creative in the way, all the riffs and stuff that they added. I think that's cool, and in some ways, because of their artist's interpretation, I kind of like their chorus a little better than the Bad Company chorus because I like things a little heavier personally. So, the gods are angry. I don't know if you can hear this. I'm just waiting for the lights to go. I hope I can finish this one before I lose my power. Anyway, so let's continue. Here we go. So a perfect song to do this song too, right?
Rebel souls, deserters we are called.
Love that tone.
Chose a gun and threw away the sun. Now these towns, they all know our name. Six gun sound is our claim to fame. I can hear them say.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. And again, there's such a sexiness to Paul Rodgers' voice just from a soul standpoint. But when I hear the Bad Company version, I think of some guy standing out in the wind, kind of like Bon Jovi, in the movie Wanted, Dead or Alive, or, just one of the Western movies that Bon Jovi's done, let's say, and soundtrack too. And you just see this guy out in the wind and his jacket's blowing and he's got his 6-gun here. Whereas Five Finger Death Punch is about tanks and helicopters. It's a different vibe, you know what I mean? So to me, one is like really militant and the other is Wild Wild West. So anyway, let's continue.
Rebel souls, deserters we've been called. Chose a gun and threw away the sun.
See, so there's like this Metallica. So he's got, you know, there's a lot of Metallica kind of influence again to this for me also, which I think is cool. I love the backbeat of the drum stuff. But it's a different, again, it's a very aggressive sounding approach instrumentally, which leads to the vocals sounding aggressive too when they come in.
Now these towns, well, they all know our name. The Death Punch sound is our claim to fame. And that's why they call me.
Okay, dig it, right? All right, pretty cool. Let's go back to Bad Company.
Bad company, and I won't deny.
Now, I want to point out the rhythm here. So the Bad Company, boom. You know, there's this kind of, like I said, a swing to the groove that is very down. You know, like I said, one's really blocked off and another was, you know, kind of got this going on. You know what I mean? So it's important to the distinction because of the interpretation. Then again, though, they're a heavy modern rock band, and that's their shtick. That's what they do. So.
Bad company, till the day I die.
And the phrasing is very different.
Till the day I die.
Okay, and then the solo. Let's continue. Here we go.
Bad company, I can't deny. Bad company, till the day I die. Until the day I die. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. We've all gotta die. We've all gotta die.
Cool. Now, I want to point out something else that's pretty obvious, okay? I forget the lead guitar player's name in the band. Help me out here, guys. Put it in the comment section. Whenever I've heard their music, it's always, and solos and stuff, it's always reminded me of this like really great guitar player that can't ever really show off because you can't really show off in modern rock. So he goes out of his way to come up with these really cool parts. And so it's more like orchestral guitar. I don't want to say like Brian May, because Brian May's whole thing was very symphonic and different. But his thing is really thinking about the parts, which is really cool. So he goes out of his way not to be typical. He goes out of his way not to be trite. And so he really contributes significantly creatively to the band with his guitar parts. And I think that's really awesome. I'd love to hear him shred a little bit more, because you can tell with some of the stuff, even this arpeggiated thing he did here at the end of the solo, that he's a killer guitar player, but he's not really given permission to like flash, you know what I mean? So I wanted to say that because I wanted to give him kudos for that. I'm gonna hear just part of the solo here. And it's not just about the singing though. I am a vocal coach and I'm concentrating a lot on that, but I wanted to point that out along the way. to me, again, I think the solo in the Bad Company version sucks. I love Bad Company, and they have other good songs with some decent solos and well thought out parts. It's just like drony psychedelia 60s guitar, 70s, early 70s guitar stuff. Just does absolutely nothing for me. As a kid, I would never grow up and go, oh man, I want to learn that. But it's the Five Finger Death Punch. I'm like, yeah, Bennett, all these kind of one and kind of things, and the arpeggios he does at the end of the solo. So he absolutely crushed, in my opinion, the Bad Company solo. So coming to the end here. Okay, now this one, on this version, basically what happens is it just kind of drones on forever. I mean, not ever, but it goes on like another 16 bars or something. And what's really cool is in the in the Five Finger Death Punch version, it actually takes you somewhere, and they were very creative as far as their production on how they orchestrated the end of this. So I think they did a better job. I think a lot of 70s stuff was, let's take the vocal up a little higher and maybe add a little guitar to it. But they didn't, I don't think, as far as post-production and creativity of the actual ending of the song, the orchestration, I think that Five Finger Death Punch kills them. Check it out.
And that's why they call me Bad Company.
And it's massive. Dig it. Like, and even like, the different chord changes that are going through that are different than the Bad Company version. I think that's really cool. Okay, so again, this is, I tried to be as fair as I could. I'm a bigger fan of Paul Rodgers as a singer, personally. It's my influence. It's what I grew up on. I grew up on the song Bad Company, so I have an affinity towards it and a much greater love of the original. I think just because it's sort of, like I said, again, sort of the backstory of my life, growing up in this stuff. So a soundtrack of my life, so to speak. But in the Five Finger Death Punch, very creative, very good job. Like, for today's language of music, I think Five Finger Death Punch absolutely nailed it. You tell me what you think. Put it in the comment sections. I'd like to hear your thoughts and comments. And definitely check out my next video.